methods for a little synthetic killing. It's all harmless fun.
Superdimension Neptune vs. Sega Hard Girls, which releases today in the US, places us in an alternate universe from the main story, where we find that our favorite goddesses are living in different time periods, unaware of one another, as opposed to being affiliated with Game Academy. But don't let their apparent disassociation fool you. Their antics are in full force for this entry in the series. Our story gives the helm to IF, who is a wasteland traveler in this tale. She is searching for a magical library which is said to contain the world's history. Her quest is interrupted by a girl who falls from the sky and, as RPG luck would have it, happens to also be amnesiac. Shortly after, we discover that the world's history is being erased slowly by an unknown entity. So she and the mysterious Segami take on the task of restoring history. Prior to this game, I had no idea what Sega Hard Girls was, and my Neptunia experience was limited to Blonde plus Neptune vs. Zombies, which was another alternate universe title, interestingly enough. To her credit though, IF is a much less boring protagonist than Blonde was. The game's events were mostly voiced in English, thank God. But there's also a Japanese option for you purists out there. While I did enjoy the acting and the life that the actors brought to their characters, I found myself skipping the dialogue as I could read much faster than the characters could get to their respective points. The sound effects and music left a bit to be desired, which often when combined with my speed reading of the dialogue resulted in me having the volume turned down. I'd like to note also that my low volume gaming stints might also be a product of me playing the game in bed in the middle of the night. Gameplay is divided into 4 core perspectives: world map, dungeon crawling, battle, and event. The world map is divided into eras such as the Game Gear and Dreamcast eras, as well as the library where your missions are handed out, items are purchased, and character classes can be toyed with. The maps that represent the time eras are a bit of a spoiler, so I'm not going to go into them in any specific detail. But I will say that scattered throughout these maps are characters who come and go after dispensing some random knowledge, or perhaps something as simple as a one-liner. Many of these, I figure, are relevant to the Sega Hard Girls franchise, while others seem merely like references to retro gaming in general. The short dungeon crawling segments feel like little more than filler with linear goals such as kill 3 dogus or find out what's up with so-and-so. In short, some missions have specific criteria for completion, after which you return to the library. And the other is reliant on finding an event icon on the map, which will lead you into story event or possibly a fight. Strewn about each dungeon are collectible medals, which if all of them are collected in a dungeon, higher level items are unlocked for purchase from the store in the library. I'm not sure if I'm just bad at RPGs or what, but initially I didn't want to bother with the seemingly tedious passive fetch quest. But I soon found out that upgrading my equipment was essential when it came to a point where I couldn't win all my fights by charging up my fever gauge, transforming all my characters, and then beating the holy hell out of my enemies. Each mission that you take has a timer next to it that counts down with every other mission you complete. If a mission timer gets down to 0, it is erased from history. If this occurs with a non-story mission, the final boss, a Lavos-esque Leviathan called the Time Eater, gets stronger, as he continues to eat all of history like it was a pizza left in the lunchroom of an office. If all of the timers on the available missions hit 0, you are forced into a battle with the big baddie, which will inevitably result in you getting your rear end handed to you. The game forces the first time on you to introduce the concept. Fortunately, if this occurs more than once, you go all Edge of Tomorrow and are thrust back to the beginning of the adventure. But don't worry, all of your completed quests are still done. Thank God. Also, any incomplete quest that you didn't get to finish resets so you can complete them all. So all you completionists can save your inevitable VITA wall rage throw for another game. Now let's talk about fights for a moment, or several moments. Fights are turn-based, with a twist. Your character can attack, use items, or transform a certain amount of times per turn. If you attack or perform too many actions within that turn, you will run out of SP, which will result in your character having to be sidelined while you get pounded by the enemy, and not in a good way. This encourages you to think on your toes and not put all your SP into a single bout of attack, unless you're sure that you can eliminate the target within that single turn. Battle mechanics are explained by way of confusing tutorial screens that meant absolutely nothing to me until I discovered the option myself and figured out the mechanic by myself. Incidentally, the same thing happened in Blonde vs. Zombies. You're spared random encounters and prompt battles by running into the enemies. If the enemy spots you, they will chase you. If they get to you before you have a chance to escape, they will have the advantage of a sneak attack, which is a fairly common mechanic in RPGs that utilize the on-screen encounter. Now you, on the other hand, gain the upper hand by attacking the enemy in the world map by pressing square. This is dodgy, however, as multiple times I had been certain that I was the master of my domain, only to find a difficult enemy now had the run-of-the-mill for attacks. And my goodness, they take many turns when this happens. You can actually run through an entire dungeon without fighting a single enemy. However, it's often not recommended, as is the case with many RPGs. Eventually you will meet a boss or some other difficult enemy, and you will get wasted. Anyone who's played an RPG in the last 20 years knows full well that you're required to level up your character, lest you be swept away by the raging winds of poor planning. Now, I had a bit of a problem with the experience distribution. Very early in the game, the last blocks dungeon had me scratching my head looking for the way out. I can't even tell you how many times I had to hear IF say, "Jump!" every time she jumped, or "Here we go!" and "Whew!" when she grabbed onto a climbable surface. But that's not why I brought this place up. See, this dungeon offered more experience per fight than a boss battle, or even a dungeon several hours into the game. In fact, every time a new character was added to my roster, the grind turned into a formulaic circle of visiting the last block level to power up, which thankfully, the game mercifully levels up characters not in play as well as your dream team, so you never have to feel like you're neglecting anyone. As a casual gamer, this limits the frustration level and ups the fun factor, as it allows me to breeze through the story without getting too frustrated with it. However, hardcore players looking for a challenge may be disappointed by this. At an estimated playtime of 24 hours, Superdimension Neptune vs. Sega Hard Girls is a delightfully, if not sometimes annoying RPG adventure that offers bite-sized missions, amusing writing, and great voiceovers, and above all else, a gateway to a series many people may not know existed, which is basically why crossovers exist in the first place. Yeah, we see you back there, CSI Miami.
What's going on, everybody? Brian here with the Nerd Theory channel and MPG podcast. If you like what you saw, please support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/nerdtheory.